What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners video for today's 6-game MLB main slate, courtesy of Osmo.com. As any veteran of the Four Corners can tell you, these short slates are where it's time to get weird, time to think a lot more about leverage relative to the ownership we're expecting, but it's also still a time when there's a lot of good hitting, so I'm going to give you guys a chance to win a free month of Osmo Plus. So right now, like this video. If you want to win that free month, comment your double dong pick down below. Yesterday, we only had one in the major leagues, and nobody got him correct, so I'm going to really be itching to give away that free month today. So right now, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below for your chance to win that free month of Osmo Plus. I got that intro in one take, so I'm feeling really good about myself as we head to our first corner today. The top pitchers on today's slate, and Jose Berrios going against the White Sox is that guy. Berrios gets 4 implied runs against him, and he's expected to be the #1 owned pitcher on DraftKings with 49%, on FanDuel with 33%, and on Yahoo with 59%. Berrios has been a mediocre strikeout pitcher with a 21.5% K rate and an unimpressive 4.5 xFIP, but a poor White Sox team with a 26% K rate and a 150 ISO versus right-hand pitching on the year is an appealing spot for him. Berrios does limit production well, and he is in a really good spot here, but with the strikeout upside that low, it does make sense to maybe come in a bit under the field and try to find some value or pivots elsewhere. Wade LeBlanc versus Detroit should also find some ownership today with 4.3 implied runs against him. LeBlanc projects to be the #2 owned on DraftKings with 41% and on Yahoo with 51%, while he'll be #3 on FanDuel with 17%. Detroit is bad with a 148 ISO and a 26.2% K rate versus left-hand pitching, but LeBlanc isn't particularly deserving of ownership with his 5.1 xFIP and 17.6% K rate. It's another good spot on paper, but LeBlanc is a worse pitcher than Berrios, and I'd be more inclined to pivot off of him than Berrios as well. With high ownership expected for LeBlanc, I think some Detroit stacks could also be in order here. And Jose Suarez versus Baltimore will also be popular in some spots with 3.9 implied runs against him. Suarez will be the #2 owned pitcher on FanDuel with 21%, while he'll be #3 on DraftKings with 31%. Suarez has been manhandled so far by right-handed batters with a 2.1 whip and an 8 xFIP allowed, but his 25.2% K rate overall offers some upside given that Baltimore is bringing a 26.5% K rate and 86 WRC plus versus left-hand pitchers this year. Suarez has some strikeout ability, but he has shown a real weakness versus righties. I don't mind coming close to the field on him because he has that strikeout upside, but there is a decent chance that a Baltimore stack could have some value against him if Suarez is highly owned. Now on to our next corner, the top stacks on the slate, and a Yankee stack versus Rick Porcello is one of those teams. The Yankees get 5.5 implied run, and they project for top stack ownership with Porcello not showing much in 2019 with a 5.3 xFIP and a 17.5% K rate. The Yankees have a 212 ISO and a 119 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching on the year, but their high prices and sky-high ownership give reason to look elsewhere on this slate. The Yankees look good, but it's a short slate here, so even though I do like some of their guys, I'm probably inclined to come in a bit under the field here with their ownership looking sky-high so far. On the other side, a Boston stack versus Masahiro Tanaka should also find some ownership with 5.5 implied runs for them as well. Boston is equally strong versus right-hand pitching with a 211 ISO and a 122 WRC plus in their projected lineup today. Unlike Porcello, Tanaka's come close to respectability with a 1.2 whip, but he's been down on strikeouts with just a 20.3% K rate, so Boston may be able to take advantage of him even though he's not a bad pitcher on paper. It looks right now like Boston's ownership will be going more towards mini stacks, so if you full stack him up, you probably are differentiating a bit, but I don't love the spot overall versus Tanaka with what we've seen from him so far this year. And an Angel stack versus Jimmy Yacobonis looks strong today with 6.1 implied runs for them, which are a slate high. Yacobonis has shown nothing this year with a 5.7 xFIP and 302 batting average allowed, plus a 5.2% on run rate as well. The Angels' ownership will be sky high on Trout and Ohtani, but less owned elsewhere, so full stacks could have more value than expected, especially with that Baltimore bullpen so bad. Right now, the Angels look like they'll be my favorite stack, but we'll see how the ownership shakes out. I think there's a lot of value in these guys, and one guy in particular who I'll talk about in a little bit. Onto our next corner, the lower owned options on today's slate, and the Cleveland stack versus Mike Montgomery is one of those teams. Cleveland gets 5.4 implied runs, and Montgomery doesn't offer much with a 14.2% K rate, 1.9 whip, and 339 batting average allowed in 2019. Guys like Jason Kipnis and Jake Bauers are worthless versus left-hand pitching, but Cleveland's overall 198 ISO and 109 WRC plus in their projected lineup offers potential versus a weak left-handed pitcher. Cleveland's been rounding into form, and Montgomery looks bad this year, so I think it's a decent spot to go to them. There's one guy in particular who I like quite a bit as a one-off. Lucas Giolito versus Minnesota also interests me with 4.5 implied runs against him. Giolito strikes me as a price pivot to a high-owned Berrios with a much higher 29.7% K rate for Giolito, but also a much tougher matchup here versus Minnesota. Minnesota's 226 ISO and 113 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching this year is worrisome, but Giolito has just a 1.1 whip and can find strikeouts at far less ownership than a chalky Berrios. For tournaments, Giolito offers a lot of strikeout upside that Berrios doesn't have, and as a direct price pivot, I do think he's worth some ownership that you would be going to Berrios anyway. An Oakland stack versus Ariel Hirado interests me with 5.5 implied runs for them. Oakland's park favors pitchers, but Hirado's 43.3% hard contact and low 16.6% K rate will give Oakland chances to create runs. Hirado limits home runs well with a 3% home run rate and just a 31.7% fly ball rate, so it's possible Stack can generate runs with a bad Texas bullpen behind him as well. Even though the park factors aren't there, Oakland is a quality hitting team, and Hirado hasn't shown very much, so even though he does keep the ball down, I think this could be a spot where Oakland generates production either for one-offs or as mini stacks or full stacks. And on a slate of this size, Adam Plutko at Kansas City is barely interesting with a 4.6 implied run total against him. Plutko is brutal versus left-handed batters with a 6.7 xFIP and a 12.5% K rate, but Kansas City's lineup should be righty heavy, which is a spot where he's much less egregious. Plutko has a 22.1% K rate and a 1 whip versus right-handed batters, so even though he struggles heavily with home runs with a 7.1% home run rate in 2019, it's possible he sneaks out a decent value day as a pivot to a comparably bad chalk play in Wade LeBlanc. Adam Plutko doesn't excite me, but Wade LeBlanc definitely doesn't either, so in a slate like this, only 6 games, you gotta choose your battles wisely, and I do think having some Plutko exposure could make sense as a pivot to a guy like LeBlanc. And now onto our last corner of the one-offs, and Shohei Ohtani versus Jimmy Yacobonis is one that jumps out to me. Yacobonis stinks overall, but he stinks even worse versus left-handed batters with a 6.6 xFIP and a 15.8% K rate, while Ohtani brings a 308 ISO and a 165 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching. Ohtani had to sit a few games because of there being no DH in the National Leagues. I think he's going to come out swinging today in a really nice spot versus Jimmy Yacobonis and that brutal Baltimore bullpen. Edie Gregorius versus Rick Porcello also interests me as a one-off. Edie is extremely hot hitting right now, and he has a 242 ISO with just a 12.8% K rate versus right-hand pitching, while Porcello is worse versus left-handed batters with a 1.4 whip and 39% hard contact allowed. Edie picked up a lot of momentum in that Minnesota series, and the spot here versus Porcello is a good one for him to keep that going today. And Cleveland's Oscar Mercado versus Mike Montgomery is also a one-off who jumps out to me. Perennial four corners favorite the Ginger Assassin Jordan Luplow is a much cheaper alternative, but Mercado's mashed left-handed pitching with a 52% hard contact rate while offering a ton of speed on the bases as well as a 192 ISO. Mercado's been one of the most reliable pieces of that Cleveland stack that does have trouble sometimes getting to full value. I think it's a nice spot to go to Mercado in lineups where you don't have that full Cleveland stack. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on today's short slate. So right now, like this video, and if you want to win that free month of Osmo Plus, comment your double dong pick down below. You got less games today, so get a little weird with it, get a little contrarian. I'm sure nobody saw Paul DeJong having the big home run, 3 home run day actually yesterday. So get on there, get somebody weird in there, but whatever you do, make sure to like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. And if you don't want to wait for the Paul DeJongs of the world to put you in a baby Bjorn and carry you to glory, you can also use that promo code Switch and Hedge for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. Get all the ownership projections, the player projections, everything you want to build better MLB DFS lineups every day. Use that promo code Switch and Hedge right now for half off your first month and get in there, get all the data that we use here to help you make better lineups. Go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. I'm a social media guy. I'm not eating carbs. I'm dying inside every day. So give me something to look forward to right now. Go follow me on all the social media platforms at Chris Spags. I'll be back on live before lock later today, so subscribe, hit that notification bell to know when we go live. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow with another Four Corners video. So thank you guys for watching and good luck.